Well, we've seen every time that Aaron Rodgers has been healthy, since he was named the starter, replacing the legendary Brett Favre, they've had a chance to be one of the best teams. And when you have someone like Aaron Rodgers, it's more of the old NBA effect, where we're typically the best player in the NBA team. They're going to win more championships, win more games. With Aaron Rodgers, because he can dictate so many different things inside of the game that you're going to give him a chance to be able to play against anyone. You know, you're not going to look at the roster. You do different things with his roster and New England's roster because we have so much faith in the quarterback that we know the other players are going to be better. We're like, oh, but their wide receivers, like, well, what about their offensive line? But they got that guy.
Right.
So as long as they have that guy, he loves football. I believe he's coming back this year with a point to prove after a season being cut short last year by Anthony Barr there of the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers wants to get the Packers back in the Super Bowl. And I believe this year, with everything that's gone on, even him injured last year, losing personnel, losing coaches without his input, he seemed to be pretty upset about those things, and I believe he'll use that as motivation, Nick.
If all rosters and coaching staffs were created equal, and the only differentiator team to team was quarterback, if guys 2 through 53 and the coaches were all the same on all 32 teams, then this Packers team would win every year. Like, if he had the same talent as the teams he's going up against, the same coaching ability, the same schematic edge as some of the other teams he's gone up against, no one's better than him. It would be Rodgers versus Brady in the Super Bowl every year. So why has the Packers not been back to a Super Bowl since they won one? Well, who is their running back this year? That's not a rhetorical question.
No.
That's a real one.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, it was a dude wearing 88. This year, is it going to be their 4th-round pick from 2017 or their 5th-round pick for 2017? Like, here's another question. Who, other than Clay Matthews, is an impact front 7 defender? I'm not certain. Now, Khalil Mack could change those things. And typically when you hear about a marquee player being available, he's available for a reason, because you got to either he has off-field issues, or in Mack's case, he's going to set a new standard for salary. And you're like, all right, do we want to give up multiple first-round picks and make this guy the highest-paid player in the league at his position? If you're the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, absolutely. Because if you added that type of talent, then they go from being in contention just because they have Aaron Rodgers to being one of maybe the favorite, because they have the best player on one side of the ball and arguably also the best player on the other side of the ball.
Why hasn't the organization done more to support him? They know the same thing we know. Why would you say, well, we can contend with Aaron Rodgers, as opposed to, hey, we can win with Aaron Rodgers and, say, a couple of weapons, or a guy like Khalil Mack on defense?
Well, their philosophy just hasn't worked. They have a philosophy as an organization. They're going to grow organically, and that means limited participation in free agency, and they're going to grow through the draft. They're going to draft players, develop them in-house. They realize it's a special environment where they play, but they thought that that was going to be the way for them to have success. But they have seen that it has not led to success. They haven't participated in free agency like other teams, and other teams have a tremendous advantage. I believe you bring up a great point as far as the Khalil Mack. I believe that right now, at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career, Aaron's not 36. He's not 37. He's not Drew Brees. He's not Brady. Man, he's in the prime of his career. They should make a move to be able to change this franchise. And Khalil Mack would be that kind of guy. Because you can't just always just look at Aaron Rodgers, okay, what he can do. You have to look at what's in the NFC, what's in his own division with the Minnesota Vikings, the amount of pressure that they can put on him, the cover people that they have outside. So why don't we get Aaron Rodgers a little bit of help? Get him an elite pass rusher on the other side and get him some type of running game. I mean, their running game has been so pathetic that it's hard to win being one-dimensional. If you look at their leading rusher last year, a little over 500 yards. There's only three teams in the league that were worse than him, and Russell Wilson had more rushing yards than their leading rusher. So it lets you know how bad and one-dimensional Green Bay has been when they take the fields with the best quarterback in Aaron Rodgers.
And here's the thing. So he takes over in 2008. Starting in 2009, they make the playoffs every single year until last year when he was injured. So 8 straight seasons in the playoffs, which is one of the 3 longest streaks in modern NFL history. So he takes over in 2008. 2010, they win the whole thing. 2011, they're 15-1 before they're upset in their first playoff game by the Giants. The famous Tom Coughlin's face turned purple on the sidelines of Lambeau. And then the last few years up until last year, I understand why they wouldn't change their philosophy. They said, man, we made the NFC Championship game and lost in overtime to Seattle.
How many points did they give up?
In that one, I think that was 28-22.
Yes.
Now, they did lose an epic game against Arizona in overtime once, 51-45 in the playoffs. But in 2014, NFC Championship game, overtime loss. The next year, overtime loss to Arizona. That's the famous Aaron Rodgers two Hail Mary game. 2016, NFC Championship loss to Arizona. That's the 44-point game. When you saw Rodgers just have a look on his face on the sideline like mid-second quarter, oh, it doesn't matter what I do. We can score every time. We're never getting a stop. And so you could look at that and say, hey, that's a very successful team. Aside from New England, who's been more successful this decade? Another way to look at it is, you can't judge your success by everyone else's when you have the best player in the league. When you have the best player in the league, you shouldn't be one of the teams that is successful. You should be the most successful. And they haven't done that. I can't put that on Rodgers. I know some people say he doesn't have no comeback wins or I watch the guy play. He is as skilled of a quarterback as anyone I've seen in the history of the sport. It's the pieces around him.
Yeah, and the comeback wins, you can score, but if your defense don't stop them, you end up holding the L.
Right.
So the reason why he doesn't have those comeback wins is not because he wasn't productive in those late critical situations. It's that he wasn't on the field for the last series of the game.
But a little more promising when you look at the addition of a guy like Jimmy Graham into that offense, and then you think maybe they could get Khalil Mack. And does that give you a little more promise heading into this season?
Well, I mean, it's just a rumor about Khalil Mack. I need to see him in Green Bay.
All right,
I believe that he can change that franchise a lot like Reggie White, because at that time, they didn't have a franchise quarterback. Reggie changed the culture there, and a lot of guys wanted to go to Green Bay there. Besides the time that Brett Favre, those were the most exciting times in Green Bay the last 30 years. Man, if you trade for Khalil Mack, you get one of the premier rushers on that field in Green Bay that I believe is conducive for an edge rusher. It's a slow surface. It doesn't have a whole bunch of grass on it year-round. So I believe it matches up for how they want to play and with having Aaron Rodgers on the other side.
All right.
And Jenna, you asked in the morning meeting, you asked me a really interesting question, I thought, which was about, you know I love lists, and you were asking about Rodgers in the Pantheon, because you brought up that Tom Brady, who's considered the greatest of all time, plays in the same era as Rodgers. Cris and I both regularly say Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league. And so why do we not include Rodgers in the greatest of all time discussion? And it's purely because, so who's in that discussion? Brady. How many rings he got? 5. Montana, he got 4. Elway, he got 2. Manning's got 2. Like Peyton, not Eli, of course, even though I guess they both have 2.
Yes.
Like, all Aaron needs is one more. I'm not saying that's all he's going to get, and I'm not even saying he's going to get that. But if he gets one more, once he has the multiple championships, his numbers are so jaw-dropping. He has a 4-to-1 touchdown-interception ratio. No one other than Brady in league history even has a 3-to-1. He has the best passer rating in NFL history by a wide margin. It's just only one Super Bowl and only one appearance. Like, that's the rub with him consistently.
I think the biggest indictment against Aaron Rodgers is not about the playoff success. I believe that in this era that you talk about, forget about Brady. Ben's got 2. Eli's got 2. Okay, so there's some other people that have rings that don't have his ability.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.